The woman collapses at the fire's edge just after moonrise. He hears her before he sees her, ragged breathing, boots dragging through October leaves. When she stumbles into the clearing, firelight catches the fletching first. The arrow shaft protrudes from her left shoulder, angled downward. Her dress is torn at the hem. Dried blood maps her sleeve in dark continents. She doesn't speak. Her eyes find his face, then the fire, then his face again. She drops to her knees. He sets down the rabbit he's been skinning and wipes his hands on his pants. Moves slow. She watches him like cornered prey watches the traps approach. "I won't hurt you," he says. She laughs, a broken sound. "Everyone hurts." He's Apache, though the army tried to beat it out of him at the boarding school. They shaved his head and burned his clothes and taught him English. They couldn't touch what lived behind his eyes. Now he lives in the mountains alone, trapping and hunting, speaking to no one for weeks at a time. The woman's face is sun-worn, mid-30s maybe, freckles scattered across her nose, one front tooth slightly crooked, not pretty in the way of china dolls. Real. Her hair hangs loose, brown and tangled with twigs. "That arrow needs to come out," he says. "I know. It'll hurt. Everything hurts." She says it matter of fact. No self-pity. He brings her closer to the fire, helps her sit. She doesn't flinch when he touches her good shoulder. Up close, he smells blood and fierce sweat and something else. Smoke, like she's been running from a fire. The arrows lodged deep, but missed the bone. He's pulled arrows before, from deer, from himself once, from other men in the war nobody talks about anymore. "Look at the stars," he tells her. She tilts her head back. The sky opens above them, pine branches framing 1,000 points of light. He pulls. She doesn't scream, just exhales hard through her teeth. The arrow comes free, trailing dark blood. He packs the wound with moss and strips of clean cloth from his saddlebag. His hands work steady while hers shake. "You'll see tomorrow," he says. The words surprise him. His mother used to say that, meaning, survive tonight, reassess at dawn. The woman's eyes close. "Maybe I don't want to." He understands that too. He builds the fire higher. She sleeps sitting up, leaning against a log, her good hand resting near the knife at her belt. She doesn't trust him yet. That's smart. He stays awake, watching the tree line for whoever shot her. The fire crackles. An owl calls. The woman breathes shallow and steady. When false dawn grays the sky, she's still alive. He makes coffee in a dented tin pot. She wakes to the smell of coffee and venison. Her shoulder throbs with each heartbeat. The bandage is clean, tied with care. The Apache sits across the fire, pouring coffee into 2 cups. Steam rises between them like a question. "How long?" Her voice comes rough. 6 hours, sun's up." He hands her coffee. She takes it with her right hand, studies him over the rim. He's older than she first thought, maybe 40. Deep lines bracket his mouth. His hair hangs past his shoulders, black streaked with gray. His hands are scarred across the knuckles. "Who shot you?" he asks. She drinks instead of answering. The coffee tastes like smoke and roots. "White men," she finally says, "from the settlement, said I was on their land." "Were you?" "I was walking. Don't know whose land anymore. Don't care." She shifts, winces. "They took my wagon 2 days back. Took everything." He nods like this explains the world. Maybe it does. His camp is simple. A lean-to made of pine boughs, a fire ring, supplies wrapped in oilcloth and hung from branches. Everything speaks of temporary. Everything speaks of alone. "What's your name?" she asks. He hesitates. "Names are power. Names are memory. People called me John at the school. Before that, other things. Which do you prefer?" "Don't matter much." "It matters." She sets down the coffee. "I'm Sarah. Was Sarah Crawford. Now just Sarah." The was hangs between them, heavy as the smoke. He tends her wound after breakfast, changes the moss, checks for fever. His touch stays clinical, impersonal. She notices how he never meets her eyes during the doctoring, offering privacy where none exists. "You know medicine," she says. "Some. My grandmother knew more, taught me before." He doesn't finish. "Before they took you." "Yes." The day passes slow. She drifts in and out of fever sleep. When she wakes, it's always to small kindnesses. Water by her hand, the fire built up, a folded blanket beneath her head. He works quietly, setting snares, scraping hides, keeping watch. At dusk, she asks the question that's been building. "Why help me?" He's quiet so long she thinks he won't answer. Finally, "My mother used to say, every person you help builds a bridge back to being human." "You feel inhuman?" "Sometimes." She understands that. After what happened in Denver, after Marcus and the bank and the accusations, she'd felt like something hollowed out, something that wore a woman's shape but held only anger and ash inside. Night settles. Coyotes yip in the distance. Sarah sits up straighter, manages to eat a little of the meat he's cooked. Her shoulder hurts less, or maybe she's learning to live around the pain. "Those men," John says carefully, "they'll look for you." "I know. Can't stay here long. They find us. They'll assume things." They assume things anyway. True enough. White woman, Apache man, alone in the mountains. She knows what conclusions they'd draw, knows the violence that would follow. "I got nowhere to go," she admits. "Lost everything in Denver, came west thinking—" She laughs without humor. "Don't know what I thought." "There's a cabin," he says, 2 miles north, abandoned, roof's good, door locks." "Whose?" "Mine, built it 3 years back, don't use it much." She looks at him across the fire. "Why tell me?" "You need shelter, winter's coming." "And you?" "I'll manage." He pokes the fire, sparks rise. "Stay as long as you need." It's charity, it's risk. It's the first kindness anyone's offered since the world turned cruel. "I got nothing to pay you with." Didn't ask for payment. Sarah feels something crack inside her chest. Not breaking, but thawing, like ice on a river just beginning to melt. "Tomorrow then," she says. "Show me this cabin." The cabin sits in a meadow ringed by aspens. Sarah sees it first through morning mist. Log walls chinked with mud, a stone chimney, one window facing south. Small but solid, built by hands that knew loneliness. "Made it myself," John says. "After the army, needed something." He stops. "Needed walls." She understands. Sometimes you need to build your own prison just to feel safe. Inside smells of dust and pine sap. One room, a iron stove, a table, a bed frame with ropes needing tightening, shelves empty except for mouse droppings and one forgotten tin cup. The door has a bolt on the inside. Sarah runs her good hand along the table's edge. The wood is smooth, sanded careful. "Why don't you live here?" "Too much roof, too many walls." He sets down her small bundle, all she has left. "Feels like the school sometimes." She turns, studies his face in the dusty light. "How long were you there?" 8 years, 6 to 14. His jaw tightens. "They said they were saving us, called it mercy." Mercy's a word people use when they mean cruelty. "Yeah." November settles in. John brings supplies, dried meat, flour, a blanket that smells of sage. He fixes the stove's flue, splits wood, fills the gaps where wind whistles through. Sarah watches him work, her arms still bound tight. "You don't have to do this," she says on the 3rd day. "I know." "So why?" He straightens from stacking wood. "You got nowhere. I got this place sitting empty." Seems wasteful. But it's more than that. She sees it in how carefully he sets the wood just inside the door where she can reach it. How he leaves without entering fully, respecting the space as hers. Her shoulder heals slow. She starts small tasks. Sweeping, organizing the shelves with the few supplies she has. She finds a broken chair in the corner, its legs snapped clean, uses strips of rawhide John left to bind it. The repair holds. He comes every few days. Never stays long. They talk in fragments. "What happened in Denver?" he asks once. She's stirring stew on the stove. Stops. "I was a bank clerk's wife, respectable. Then the bank failed. Marcus, my husband, said I'd stolen, blamed me to save himself." The spoon moves again. By the time they sorted truth from lies, he'd left. I had nothing, just a wagon and judgment. People believe what's convenient. Yes. One afternoon he brings a deer quarter, already butchered. She makes stew that lasts a week. Another time, a sack of dried beans. He never asks for thanks. December brings the first real snow. Sarah watches from the window as John approaches through white silence. He looks like something from a winter story, a man half frozen, half myth. "Storm coming," he says at the door. Won't come inside. "Big one. You got enough wood?" "Yes, you?" "Always do." But she sees his threadbare coat, the moccasins worn thin. "Take the blanket back, the good one. You need it more. You're still healing." "I'm healed enough." They stand in the doorway, cold air swirling between them. Finally, he nods. She brings the blanket. Their hands touch in the exchange. Both pull back like burned. The storm lasts 3 days. Sarah tends the fire and thinks about bridges, about mercy, about the difference between charity and care. When the snow stops, John doesn't come for a week. She worries in a way that surprises her, worries like you worry about someone who matters. On the 8th day, she walks to where she thinks his camp might be, finds tracks, follows them. He's sitting by a fire so small it barely gives heat. The blanket wrapped around his shoulders. His face looks carved from stone. "You need a roof," she says. "We talked about this." "That was before winter." She crosses her arms. "Cabin's got space. You built it. Makes no sense you freezing while it sits half empty." People will talk. People already talk. Worlds already decided about both of us. She meets his eyes. Question is what we decide. He looks at her for a long time. The fire pops. Snow begins again, soft and steady. "I'll sleep by the door," he says finally. "Keep the fire going." "All right." They walk back through falling snow. Her shoulder aches, but she doesn't slow down. Behind her, John follows with his few possessions. 2 broken people sharing broken shelter. It's enough. For now, it's enough. They learn each other's rhythms like seasons. John wakes before dawn, builds the fire to glowing. Sarah rises after, makes coffee the way he likes it, strong enough to strip paint. They eat in comfortable silence. He leaves to check traps. She mends or cooks or stares out the window at winter. January turns the world to white and gray. They exist in separate orbits within the small cabin, him by the door, her by the stove, careful never to touch, careful to maintain the fiction of distance. But distance erodes. She notices things. How he carves small animals from scrap wood in the evenings, deer and rabbits with surprising detail. How he never takes more than his share of food. How he startles at sudden sounds, same as she does. He notices things too. How she bolts the door every night, even with him inside. How she flinches when he moves too quick. How she talks to herself sometimes. Arguments with ghosts he can't see. Marcus used to. She starts one evening, then stops. John waits. The knife in his hand pauses mid-carve. He'd lock me in when he was angry, said I needed time to think about my behavior. She stares at her hands. Sometimes overnight, sometimes longer. That's why the bolt matters. Yes, need to know I can lock the world out, not be locked in. She looks up. Does that make sense? Yes, at the school they locked us in the dormitory. 50 boys in one room, no windows that opened. Some nights I thought the walls would crush us. His hands resume carving. That's why I sleep outside mostly. Need to see sky. They're building something, not romance, not yet. Something older, recognition. 2 people who've learned that shelter can be a cage and that trust is the bravest thing. February brings a thaw, then more snow, then a knock on the door that makes them both freeze. Sarah opens it to find a woman, 40-ish, weathered, carrying a basket covered with cloth. "Heard someone was up here," the woman says. Her eyes flick past Sarah to John standing by the stove. Her expression hardens. "Wanted to see for myself. I'm Sarah. I know, word travels. I'm Margaret Chen, got a homestead 3 miles east." She doesn't offer the basket. "Living with an Indian, that's brave or foolish." "I'm living in a cabin. He's living in a cabin. Same cabin, different reasons." People don't see it that way. People see what they want. Sarah's voice stays level. "I appreciate the visit, Mrs. Chen." It's a dismissal. Margaret's jaw tightens. "Settlement's having a barn raising next month. Spring thaw. You should come. Show folks you're decent." "And if I'm not decent, then you'll fit right in with him." Margaret turns on her heel and leaves. The basket stays on the ground. Inside, bread and dried apples. Charity that tastes like judgment. That night, Sarah can't sleep. John sits by the fire whittling. "She's right," Sarah says finally. "We're making you a target." "Was already a target. But now you're—" She struggles for words. "You gave me shelter. I'm repaying it with trouble." John sets down his knife. "My grandmother used to say, don't plant seeds in winter and expect summer fruit. Things take time, things take root slow." He looks at her across the dim room. "You're not trouble, Sarah. You're just a person who needed help." "So are you." The words hang between them, true and raw. March brings mud and the first green shoots. They plant a garden together, beans and squash and corn. Sarah's shoulder moves easier now. She can lift, can work, can feel useful again. The barn raising comes. John doesn't go. Sarah does. She wears her only decent dress and walks 3 miles to face judgment. The settlement people watch her arrive, whispers behind hands, eyes that slide away. Margaret Chen nods once but doesn't approach. A man corners Sarah by the water barrel, red-faced, smelling of whiskey. "You the one living in sin up the mountain?" "I'm living in a cabin a man was kind enough to share." "Man," he spits. "That's generous." Sarah feels anger rise like floodwater. "He's more man than most I've met. Pulled an arrow from my shoulder, fed me, asked nothing." Her voice cuts. "What have you done for anyone lately besides judge?" She leaves before the barn's finished, walks home through spring mud, furious and shaking. John's at the cabin, takes one look at her face. What happened? She tells him everything. The whispers, the accusations, the cowardice of staying silent while that drunk spoke. "I should have—" John stops, shakes his head. "Should have what?" "Should have come with you. Should have stood there and let them see." He struggles. "I was afraid. Thought staying away protected you." "Protecting me by hiding isn't protection. It's just more judgment, means you agree with them." The words land like blows. John's face goes tight. "You're right." They stand in the small cabin that's become something like home. Outside, spring insists itself on the frozen world. "I'm not good at this," John says quietly. "Being around people, trusting they won't—" He gestures vaguely. "Turn." "I'm not good at it either." Sarah moves closer, not touching, just closer. "But maybe we can be not good at it together." Something shifts. Something settles. That night, John moves his bedroll from by the door to near the stove. Not close, but closer. Sarah doesn't bolt the door. April comes with wildflowers and morning birds. They work the garden side by side. John teaches her to set snares. Sarah teaches him to read better. He knows some from the school, but hated it. Now, with her patient voice, words become less like weapons. One evening, she unpacks the small trunk she's kept closed since arriving. Inside, a few dresses, a tintype of her mother, a book of poems. She sets them on the shelf, making the space permanent. John carves her a deer from pine, sets it on the windowsill without comment. They're building something, not romance, not yet, but foundation, the deep roots that come before flowers. May morning, Sarah wakes to find John already up, coffee made. He's sitting at the table looking nervous. What? She asks, thinking about that barn raising, about hiding. He meets her eyes. There's another one. June, I'd like to go with you. Let them see. He stops. Let them see I'm not ashamed. Sarah sits across from him, reaches out, takes his scarred hand in hers. First time they've touched without wound or work between them. All right, she says, we'll go together. Outside, the garden grows. Inside, something else grows too. Slower than corn, deeper than roots. Something that looks like home.